I want to talk about those seasons in life that just feel so overwhelming and exhausting. And maybe you've been going through one now, like I have been, where you feel like you can't quite catch your breath and the days are just running into each other and your head hits the pillow at the end of the day and you're just thinking, what actually happened today? And you know you've done a lot and you've been showing up, but it all just becomes kind of blurry. You haven't felt like you can enjoy it. You haven't been able to enjoy your day and savor anything. And you're essentially in survival mode. So I want to talk about how we can set ourselves up better for those seasons of overwhelm and also how we can get out of them with a little bit more ease. Because I feel like this has actually become the default for so many of us, and especially for those of us in motherhood, this can be amplified hugely. Modern culture throws things at us that make it so hard not to be overwhelmed. And I have been in this season recently. My daughter turned 1 last week, and actually this is my favorite age, but somehow the overwhelm and the anxiety have just felt really strong over the last couple of months. Anyway, there's lots to it, and I think people expect mothers to kind of be on top of everything when the 1 year mark rolls around. But in some ways, I actually feel like it can be harder. But anyway, this is not what this video is about, but let me know in the comments if you feel the same. But I think we need to remember that as women, as mothers, we can't expect healing and life to always be linear. We can't expect it to just go like this. And especially with our modern culture designed the way it has been, we can fall into survival mode much more easily, and it can feel harder to lift ourselves out of it when it does happen and to increase our capacity again after we've been in one of those seasons, because our society isn't designed for good health. It's just not. We need to remember that. So we need to be super intentional to get ourselves back and feeling good. I have come to believe that we do actually need these seasons sometimes, which might sound a bit weird, but I think they're just part of being human. And I feel like sometimes we need that contraction, to come out the other side blooming, I guess, like a caterpillar to a butterfly or a flower over winter that then blooms in spring. So we need to not stop these seasons from happening completely, but design our lives in a way that supports us through those seasons better and allows us to move through them with more ease and come out the other side feeling good. So this is sort of a real-time sharing of some of the things that I already had in place that I feel have helped me through this particular season this time round, and also just what I've been doing to bring myself out of the overwhelm and bring my head above water and feel more vitality and more capacity. And I really hope that this might help you and give you some ideas if you're also in one of these seasons. So one thing I've talked about previously in another video, I think, is the concept of health foundations. I started creating these small rhythms and anchors in my days a few years ago now, and they kind of tweak occasionally, but they're essentially things that are there all the time, every single day. They're things that I can fall back on in hard seasons without having to think too much, because it's just part of my rhythm. It's just part of my lifestyle. So it creates this baseline for me that if everything else is going absolutely crazy, I've got those things dialed in, and then they can support and carry me through those hard seasons. And these last couple of months of overwhelm and a bit of anxiety and worry, I had a lot of worry, which doesn't happen much for me anymore. But anyway, these past couple of months have been definitely a test of these foundations. And I guess motherhood as well from the start has been a really good test of how strong these foundations are for me. And I'm so grateful to my past self for locking these foundations in, because it gave me this softer landing, if that makes sense. So these couple of months have still felt kind of like this, like still up and down, but it wasn't this, like zigzagging and like going everywhere. I don't know if this is a good example, but that zigzag is like it had been previously before I had these strong foundations in place. So it was a period of overwhelm, but I knew that I had myself. My past self was there for my current self, which I think is kind of lovely. And I knew I could rely and just fall back on those things that I'd implemented, because I'd kind of just baked them into my life. I'd sort of designed my life so that these things came really naturally and without having to think about them. So when life was unsteady and uncertain, they were there for me. So essentially, the foundations are things that nourish you, that tell your body that it's safe, that give your body the fuel that it needs to keep going, that create a home or pockets of your home that feel like an exhale, that feel like calm. Even when you have all these other things whirling, you have these nourishing anchors that not only feel good and familiar and just a part of who you are, but they also nourish you and help you to actually move through these difficult seasons with perhaps a little more ease than you would otherwise. Anyway, I am babbling, so let me talk about these foundations and what they actually are for me. And some of them might just sound really bog standard and simple, but I think that's kind of the point. I think we often veer so far from basics that we forget that they are the things that we really need to have in place before we do anything else, to create this baseline of living that we just naturally do. So the first ones are morning and evening foundations. Protecting those two ends of the day, it's like bookending your day with healthy anchors and healthy habits. And then you at least know that the start and end of your day, you're looking after yourself in some way with something nourishing. And it just gives you that grounding and that routine and that stability that you need in these sorts of seasons. So if you feel like you don't have any nourishing foundations or rhythms in your days at the moment, I would focus on one for the morning and one for the evening, or even just one for the morning to get started. So the first thing is morning light in my eyes. Every morning, without fail, even when life is crazy, even when it's raining outside, even if it's grey, I get that light in my eyes. But there are so many benefits of this. I won't go into them all here, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about them a bit in another video, but definitely such an important thing for good health. The next one is the same breakfast at the table every morning. And my daughter joins me now with her little bowl and I have full fat Greek yogurt. And I really like, if you're in the UK, I really love Yo Valley's Greek recipe yogurt. It's delicious, it's full of protein, and yeah, you can just really taste the quality. Then I add wild blueberries, and we have these frozen, they're in the freezer all the time and they're so handy. And then I'll sometimes add a bit of banana and always a drizzle of maple syrup or a bit of local honey. And then I don't have decision fatigue about what I'm meant to be eating. So the next foundation is going for a walk, and I do the same walk pretty much every day, every morning, because it's beautiful and I can see the sunrise on that route. So why would I change it? So those are my 3 morning foundations: sunlight, breakfast, walk. And my evening foundations are bedtime by 10:30. And this one is a little challenging for me sometimes, but it is so easy when we're in the fog of overwhelm. And I'm sure a lot of you might relate to this. When you get to the end of the day, it's so easy to get lost in things like scrolling and prioritizing that over going to bed. And it's because we want to make up for the lack of time that we've had to ourselves during the day, and we're wanting to catch up on that. I think I've seen it called revenge bedtime procrastination. But the thing is, and in the moment, it feels like we're giving ourselves some us time, a bit of like self-care, zoning out, resting, but we're actually just prolonging something which, if we're not getting enough of it, if we're not getting enough sleep, it's going to make everything 10 times worse. So it's hard, I get it, but it's so important. So that's the other thing, screen time. Getting off your screen, not scrolling, swapping it for a book, using app blockers, not scrolling the hours away. I will talk about this until the cows come home. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that. But it just makes things so much worse. If you don't have a healthy relationship with screens, I cannot express how much importance this has. A couple of foundations that aren't morning or evening, they're just sort of in general. One is singing. And at the moment, it's my daughter's nap times and bedtime because I sing her to sleep. But singing is, at least for me, it feels so therapeutic. And there are plenty of studies linking singing with good health outcomes. And again, I'm not going to get into it in this video, but it's such a great thing to get into a rhythm with. And then whole foods, cooking with whole foods, but also having whole foods that are complete as they are. So like avocados or the frozen berries or bananas or tins of mackerel and sardines. These sorts of things that are just ready to go are so handy when you are overwhelmed, exhausted, stressed. You can just grab something and go without having to always prep something. In these seasons, you need consistency. You need familiarity. I feel like that's so important for our nervous systems and to reduce that decision fatigue and mental load, which I think is something we really underestimate. And then just really quickly, I don't know how long I've been chatting for, but I just wanted to share a few things that I've been doing, just some extra things to the foundations to bring my head above water and bring myself out of that season, and just how I've done that. So the first thing is doing a good old-fashioned pen to paper brain dump and just getting everything out. Things for me had sort of piled up, and I just needed to release that and just get it onto a page so I could see it. And then from there, I was able to kind of think, okay, where can I make things a bit easier? Where can I let something go that's draining me? And can I make something happen to help any of these issues that are here? And then another thing is thinking of myself as the main character of a movie. A number of years ago, I think it was back in the pandemic actually, in 2020, I started this thing that I call the Lucy movie, and I update it every year, and it's basically my vision for the future, and it's quite descriptive and it's illustrative, and I'm going to do another video on this. I'm going to leave this here, but essentially it's connecting to your life vision and reconnecting yourself to that, so that when you're in this overwhelm, you can kind of remember that's what it's all for, that's where I'm going. I can tick these bits off, perhaps we'll slightly change this bit, and it just gets you excited again. It brings back that passion and that excitement. And I think, to be honest, I should really have it stuck up on the wall somewhere so that I can see it every day instead of bringing it out when I need it. But yeah, let me know if you want me to share my process with that. And then I try to romanticize my days more, bring in more joy, put on some jazz in the evening when I'm cooking or going to get a coffee with my daughter, walking somewhere beautiful, being by the sea, obviously, and just seeing the joy that is actually already in my life in abundance and relishing it, enjoying it. But sometimes you do need to just create your own joy and your own kind of pizzazz, because often no one gives it to you, right? You have to create it yourself sometimes, and I think that's so important to do. The last one is to create something, even if you don't have much time, even if it's just in a small moment. Like me creating this YouTube video, for example. A creative outlet is so important, and reconnecting yourself to that sort of thing will lift you like nothing else and will help to carry you and give you the strength for other things. So I really hope that this has been helpful for you. And if you are in one of those seasons that just feels so overwhelming, I hope there's been some things here that you can take with you, that you can start implementing in just small, gentle ways. It doesn't need to be anything big and crazy. Just be gentle with yourself and start creating those foundations so that you can have that really simple baseline to fall back on. Please let me know in the comments if any of this has resonated with you, or if there's anything that you would add, or if you have any foundations yourself that you have been implementing yourself into your life. I'd love to hear about them. So have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.